there, it's good to be back again. My name is Nanya McCullis, and on this edition of the Daily Connect, I sit with the Executive Secretary of the Food and Beverage Association of Ghana. We're here to digest all the issues pertaining to the manufacturing or production center in Ghana. Here, we highlight the problems and we'll see how best government can help in solving these issues so we can boost our production and limit our import in Ghana. Hi sir, though I'm in your office, I'd like to welcome you on our channel.
Thank you.
Sir, can we start off the conversation by telling us what the Food and Beverage Association is about?
Well, let me say that the Food and Beverage Association of Ghana, normally we do call it FABAG. That's the acronym for the association. Now, the association itself came into being in 2003, and it was doing other ventures. And until 2007, we revamped the association to reflect its main and core mandates by ensuring and also assisting industries, importers, and then also retailers, the big supermarkets that you see in the country, for them to be able to achieve the aim that they want. And our main mandate is also to ensure that if government introduces any policy that we think it will be inimical to the business community, we will then come together with other associations and then propose an alternate solution or meet the sector ministry and then also negotiate with them as to how things should be done, and then also not to have more burden onto the business people, because as we know, businessmen are investors into the country, and therefore anything that will go otherwise will rather be disincentive to them, and therefore they will look for other directions. So the association is mainly to offer an alternate solution to, and also to look at the welfare of the membership.
Having spoken about what FABAG is about, I understand it is affiliated to the Association of Ghana Industries. What are the benefits it yields from there and other affiliates that you have?
Okay, let me say that, let me correct that area in terms of the affiliates. We are an independent body,
okay,
and therefore we work in concert with other associations that also, as it were, seek the same benefits as we do. And therefore, when we come together and fight for a common good, it becomes stronger. And but then we have individual interests in that area, because for us, we look at the interests of some of the importers, some of the industries, and then also the supermarkets. And then within the importers, we have one area that we hold dearly, but has been isolated from the association, but they are part of the association. We call them the rice importers, because of their business and the challenges that they have with the local production of rice, or the millers that we have in Ghana. So in a nutshell, I would say that the association itself is made up of 4 sectors, okay, that comes into one body.
Okay, very well. We're speaking about the overview of the association and then the sectors it contains and all. I want to find out how the association body is working towards taking advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, which has commenced on January 1, 2021.
Well, I should say that the African Continental Free Trade Agreement that came into force it's have its own benefits and challenges.
Sure.
And initially when it was introduced, we realized that it has come to solve a lot of problems for our local industries. Why am I saying so? It was meant to open up the external market for industries in Ghana. But unfortunately, when we look at it as it stands now, we are still having some challenges in terms of assessing even just our immediate neighbors. And therefore, if that one should be anything to write home about, we would want to penetrate within the West African market, and then also from the West African market we move into the general continental aspect of it. But then the challenges that some are facing is where you would then have to have a strong financial background to be able to reach out to these areas. What we are looking at is that in future, when there's an expansion we know that we'll benefit from, we'll still continue taking that as an advantage and then ensuring that we become part of the African continental system. So it is a platform to make a common industry growth, to make Africa stronger, and void of bringing the European market into our system, and also the other intercontinental aspects. So if we are able to trade within ourselves, we'll be able to reach out and then make the necessary, because the money that circulates within the African continent itself is, let me say, is more than what we can tap into. So therefore, if we have to send money outside Africa, why don't we trade among ourselves to get the benefit that we want? So in a way, we also would want to assess that market in terms of having our local industries expanding within those territories, you see, because that is the only way we can grow in our own markets. Because if we have to reach out to them, you go to another country, as we're exporting or importing into our country, it gets to a time that we expect that we open up our system into industrialization, and therefore these businesses will have to stop importing and then setting up those industries that will benefit the society in a good manner. So it's the same way they are also looking at in terms of free movement of goods, and then also ensuring that we have a common tariff among the African Trade Union. But unfortunately, we have taken the lead in terms of its implementation. But then our sister countries, that is where the challenges are. But we know that as time goes on, if the education is properly laid out, they will be able to come into force, and then we'll have a common goal as we expected.
Right, let's come back home. Have any of your members been able to be successful in terms of these continental trade?
Well, I won't say that they have been successful, because it's an ongoing trend and it has come to stay.
So any of the members have been able to...
Those who are exporting outside the Ghana enclave,
Sure.
I would say that yes, they have benefited and they will keep on expanding, because barring all challenges, if they're able to take out the bottlenecks that we look at, if they should bring anything for us to look at, we'll still discuss it and then meet the rightful authorities, and then we'll correct those challenges, because we cannot have a situation where we have businesses being stored in the middle of what they are doing. We need to have a free flow of it, because for us in Ghana and its implementation, it seems to be good to us. But unfortunately, what is happening is that those within the other countries are having those challenges in terms of its implementation. So we look at it. If you take something like something that we said AU fund, for instance, we started the whole thing thinking that the other African countries will also do the same, but some countries are yet to implement those policies. But for us, we've taken the lead. Implementation is going on. That is why, if you look at our import levies, it's on our IDF or whatever declaration forms that we use to declare goods or import goods. But some, I'm yet to know which country that is not implementing the policy as it is. But if you take it as a whole, we'll say that the intercontinental trade itself has come to stay, and therefore we as an African country or Africans, we have to embrace it and make it work.
Sure. In 2020 throughout to 2021, we faced COVID-19 pandemic, and being mindful of it, we went on lockdowns and others, and people came back home, and the consumption of food and beverage went high because we are home, we had to eat, and we're not doing anything. What was the gains you yield during these pandemic times?
Let me say, with the COVID inception, what actually you wouldn't say it's a gain to industry.
Before you come in, I'm saying it's a gain because the exporters, Vegetable Exporters Association says that they've been able to make 50% gains with regards to COVID-19 pandemic, and they are looking forward that, you know, Ghanaians will consume more vegetables and fruit in order to stay there than to come back. That's why I am basing that on. But maybe you have something
That's very interesting.
Sure.
But from where I sit and looking at the challenges that we have, you see the vegetable industry itself has an export section.
Sure.
That most of them do export most of these things, and then the vegetables that we don't normally consume here a lot, they are planted for export. And some also come here because they think that those plants do very well in this country, and therefore they come to grow them and export them. So if you look at it that way, that is how come perhaps their growth has been. And we have a habit not to consume more vegetables than the Francophone countries. So the challenge that we see is that, you see, from 2020 up to 2021, the beginning of the year when the COVID itself came, you see, it threw out every businesses overboard. Why am I saying so? Because some industries will have to lay off staff and then have a limited staff working for them, so therefore production itself went down. And then we have the consumption pattern, which is the consumers also having challenges with disposable income, and therefore purchasing itself was not there. So you could have the goods, but the purchase wasn't coming, and therefore you will see the level fluctuating here and there. That is where it comes as a challenge, where most people were donating to ensure that people who are not working are able to at least have something to eat, when government also came in with its own challenges and freebies for consumers, and then for households and all that. So the challenge itself, it hasn't gone off. We are now gradually assimilating ourselves into the system somehow to ensure that we reach the full capacity. For now, I wouldn't say that we have reached that capacity yet, and most of the industries are also coming into full force of their production levels. So we expect that the trend will be the same. because this has happened because government itself saw the need to ease the restrictions and then allow free movement of goods and services. The only thing that we have to do is with the consumers or the citizenry, we have to ensure that we take the needed precautions as directed by government. So we can ask for more, but then the agricultural sector itself, as you asked, because the vegetable producers are saying that for them, they benefited more in this area. Yes, they could, because if you are home and consumption itself becomes a problem, perhaps that is when you also have to delve into those areas and then you let things work for you. So they might be, but we can do more. Unfortunately, the rain pattern itself for this year, it's raining where it shouldn't rain, and so you don't know when to plant your growing your plants and your vegetables and all that. So if there's a growth in that area, we hope that they will triple up and ensure that the open markets itself is open for them, because I know there are challenges with some of our produce that goes overseas, because sometimes they will make a whole export and the whole thing will be destroyed. It's a big challenge because some of them are not applying the right chemicals, agrochemicals that they're supposed to use. They are applying them in the wrong way. So now that we have most of the agronomists helping and assisting these farmers in doing that, I'm sure the target that they set for themselves, they will be able to achieve going forward.
Sir, your association really focus on the manufacturing sector. Let's talk about what is going on there with regards to COVID, Continental Free Trade Agreement, and now is revamping. What is really the problem in the manufacturing sector?
Well, there are so many factors that is affecting industry, for instance, especially the beverage industry. If we have to talk about tax stamp, which is also, let me elaborate that one a bit, because the local manufacturers, they would want to have a way that it will make them move faster in terms of production. But then the tax stamp also has come in to somehow slow the system and all that. And we've been advocating for digital in this sense, that when we're able to go that way, government will achieve its maximum revenue, and then the industry will also be able to produce at the capacity that they want. And the stamps itself, for now, we know for imported products, there's also a way that we are looking at, where we are able to find a solution to as to how the let me say, the bits and pieces of the beverages that come into the country, how they are going to affix the stamp and all that. For that, I think for now we have taken care of that. But the industry players is what we are looking at, for them to take off that challenge and then implement the digital system in the sense of it. So that one is also a factor that we are fighting with. Then electricity. Electricity itself is a problem for us, because if we take electricity, for instance, and you factor that into your production area, what it means is that you are starting your production at the cost of 50% already, because of the cost of electricity that we have. It's too expensive for industry. So we are advocating that they should allow industry to have a different rate, which will be cheaper for them to be able to produce more. And then the produce that they are processing will also be cheaper for our local consumption, because of our low level of income that we have.
We're speaking about access to raw materials.
Yeah, the taxes is also high. Taxes is also high. Taxes comes in when you bring in your raw materials because the materials that you are not able to access within, we have to bring them outside. And if you have to bring your raw materials and you have to pay at a higher rate, then obviously what it means is that it also adds up to the cost of the finished product. And then also water, the quality of water that we have is an eyesore. Because sometimes the water being pumped from Ghana Water and Sewage into our systems are not good. So most of these beverage industries will then have to go through a filtration system to make sure that the product that comes to your table is of pure quality. So that is where we also have to look at to ensure that we do the right thing, and then industry benefits, the country also benefits. Then I mentioned taxes. If you look at the taxes that we pay, it's too much. It's too much a tax that industries will have to pay to ensure that they remain in business. But when you're able to pay, or let me say when you pay that high taxes to government, how much will be left for you to be able to turn around your business, for you to have an expansion in that sector? So we have to look at the type of taxes that we want to give to the industries. Then we come to fuel.
Yeah, that's a very great one.
Most people, or let me say most industries,
Industry players,
somehow, sometimes will have to break off from electricity, the main grid, and use the plants that they have because somehow it was cheaper. But if you look at the rate that the increment is coming, almost every week, petrol goes up, or diesel goes up, or even gas goes up. When it happens like this, you are not able to plan your production or your projections that you have for a particular quarter. You are not able to meet it. Or when you produce at a higher cost. And therefore, for you to be able to recoup the investment, you have to increase the cost of your products. Then you look at it and you come into the challenges or the competitive fray within the system. And then there is a challenge there, because if you are not careful, you may have to sell at a lower price that you'll be at a loss, or sell yourself at a higher price and you can't meet the challenges. So it's a mix of so many factors that goes into it. So for what we can absorb, we are doing it, and what government has to do, they have to do it. Because at the moment, at the rate at which we are producing, it's very expensive.
We've spoken about taxes and then electricity with fuel. How about interest rates?
Interest rates has to do with the banks.
Okay.
Now, at the rate at which we are borrowing as a country to do business, I mean, when you go to other countries, they have a single-digit interest rate for borrowers, especially if you are borrowing for industrial use. There's a rate you have to borrow at, which is very low, because you need to set up and then be able to pay back. And therefore, if I'm also borrowing to go into the real estate or for my personal use, the interest rate must also be different, you see. But for industry, we are borrowing between 18 and 21%. And at this, you cannot survive, you see. So what most of these industries does, those who have sister companies abroad, sometimes what they do is to borrow over there and then put the capital injection into our factory here, which is not good, because when we see the factories expanding, it doesn't mean that they are doing so well, but they are borrowing at a rate which is far cheaper than what Ghana government or the banks of Ghana are offering to these industries. So we should look at the interest rates so that we will be able to borrow and then inject and expand our businesses. But the rate at which we are borrowing, we can't. Even when we look at the point that has been reduced by the Bank of Ghana.
Yeah, the policy rate.
Yeah.
That's 15.5%.
If you look at it, before, how much was it? We've gone down to almost about 6 policy, 6 or 7 rates, which has dropped. But yes, we are still struggling to do with this. So most of the businesses that go into borrowing, if you look at their background, sometimes the bank will tell you they are not able to sustain the loans that they came to borrow. So if you borrow and you don't invest in an area where you think there will be a quick turnover for you to pay back, and obviously you can't yourself out of business.
Again, with major challenges, taxes, electricity, fluctuation of fuel prices, interest rate. Like over the past month, government has been boasting of single-digit inflation rate. I want to find out, are you benefiting as industry players from this single-digit inflation rate?
See, how do I put it for you to understand? Now, when you talk about inflation, inflation to the ordinary person understands it from the pocket.
Okay.
Now, when you are buying something at a rate of 1 cedi, and you go the next time and it's 1 cedi 50 pesos, what does it mean?
There's
Increments. So therefore, your assessment does not come down if you say that inflation has gone down. To you, the ordinary person, inflation has gone up by that margin. You understand? So whatever that they are looking at to bring it to the fore of consumer that inflation is dropping, we will want to see that reflecting also in the pockets as it is, because inflation, when it goes down, what it means is that the goods and services cost somehow must either remain the same or must go down. But it doesn't go up and you say that it's going down. Because when it happens like that, the understanding to the ordinary person is not there. You understand? Now, if it comes to industry, what do we look at? The factors that we have mentioned, the taxes, the electricity and all that, fuel and all that. If fuel keep on going up, automatically the cost of doing business also changes. Because the one selling the finished products, the very moment that they hear that petrol is gone up, they also fine-tune their prices. And this is a country where when prices goes up, it doesn't come down. You see? So that is where it's a challenge, a big challenge that we need to look at. A big challenge that we need to look at. So,
in your view, before we proceed, in your view, what do you think governments will do particularly to solve this particular issue before we move on?
We as a business entity, what they are looking at is to have a stable environment where your electricity doesn't go an increment. Even if it will go up, you know the time that it will go up, so you're able to plan. You know when your petrol is stable, you're able to plan whatever goes in and comes in. If you know your water is stable, you're able to plan and know when all these factors, when we put them into one basket. For us, that is where we do our inflation.
Okay.
Okay? So when these factors affect us, obviously it will throw us out of balance. You are not able to plan. Your cost of investment will then have to go up. Either you borrow to augment what you have to make sure that you stay in business. So, barring no challenges, these are the things that we look at. Then when the other side of inflation, they will look at the domestic things that comes in, like food, and all that. Because if you are going to buy kinky, they look at it, how much did kinky cost at this time. They look at the vegetables that you buy, the tomato that you buy, the gari, and the meat that you buy for the house. During that period that they are doing their assessment, how much was it costing to us? So if that one goes down, they know. But it goes down when you have a bumper harvest. You see?
Yes.
When there's a problem with the harvest and all that, prices also goes up. You see? And even when it goes up and it comes down, it goes up high, but when it's coming down, it doesn't come down to the same level that you were buying. So therefore, the challenge of inflation, you look at it in that way, and then you say that, oh, for this month or the last quarter, prices has been stable. But then the factors that drives all these things keep on changing. And if it's changing, how do you assess the aftermath of the effects? So these are the things that we need to look at as a country. Ordinary person doesn't understand what single-digit inflation is, yes. But it's the pocket that determines all.
Very well. This one is quite on my heart. A lot of beverages and food I see on the shelf when I visit the mall, or maybe sometimes the market, is imported.
Come again, what did you?
I was saying that a lot of food and beverages I see on the shelf when I go to the mall is imported into the country. It is hurting that government is advocating for made in Ghana products. So we have initiatives like buying the Ghana rice and a couple of others. How are you taking this as an association? Because if we are to produce food here and beverage here and our people are not patronizing it, or our export exceeds, our import, I beg your pardon, exceeds our export, it's quite worrying. How are we taking that? We've been looked at the challenges affecting production and all.
That's a very good question that you've asked. Let me take it from two fronts. You see, when one sits back and then look at the association itself, they will say, these people, they produce, these people, they import. Most of the importers of these beverages are members of the association. And most of these same manufacturers within the are also members of this association. How do we balance the mix to ensure that there is a fair trade and all that? You see, Ghana, in this sense, itself has become a part of the global village. And people are moving all over the places, from country to country. And therefore, they ensure that wherever they go, they should find what they want. And some people, too, when they travel, they would want to consume what is made locally. Now, if you look at the trend of production that we have in the country as of now, we keep on changing. Some area, you realize that certain things are no more coming into the country. And if it comes to production, we keep on increasing our level of brands that we have. And what we must ask is that the brands that we have, are they brands that meet international standard that we can also export into that market? So we take that one, and then we look at what we are bringing into the country. If we are exceeding certain level, the importers are spoken to, we advise them, these are the things that you need to do. Because at this level, coming into the country and looking at the local consumption, the consumption pattern, you realize that it's always better to produce locally than to produce to bring them in. But sometimes what happens is that as much as they want to set up the local manufacturing facility, the challenges getting the land, the investment, if you are not bringing your investment from outside, then it will take a longer time for you to be able to produce within the country. Then You look at the other factors like sending electricity to this area and all that. Before you get the land, the money that you are paying to access that is very high. Before you get the electricity and water to that place, the money that you have to pay to these individuals before they can send you the electricity and water is also a challenge. You see, now, for most of these people to be able to produce locally, and then barring or looking at the challenges that I've mentioned, we're supposed to have industrial parks, not within industrial residential areas, even not close to a residential area. Outskirts of Accra. In every region, we're supposed to have industrial parks, already made lands, electricity there, water there, roads are okay. So if you want to invest, what are the things that you want to do? These are the things I want to do. I want to produce beverage. I want to process farm produce. I want to do that. The lands and the setup is already there. All that you have to do is to bring your materials and then come and set up at a cost of zero rated duty. But unfortunately, what we have now, even when you are bringing your machinery, if you are not given exemption, you have to pay the full cost of duty. That when you are able to set up, you can deduct that from your taxes. No country does that. Our environment should be free for people to be able to invest. Because once you set up the factory, what that means is that you are employing the local people. You might bring one or two expertise from outside, but largely it's the local people who benefits. You pay your taxes to the government.
Labor market.
Everything is within the country, you see. So we look at that, all these things, and then we say, fine, in which way do I want to continue if I want to invest in that area? Then it's better I import, because some people would want to bring in bits and pieces of this and of that. The things that we are producing in this country, some of them we've been able to stop the import of those products, and gradually we'll stop the others too. And this is a challenge that is between the association and the government that we have to take up to ensure that these things are done to the benefit of the local producers. So if you are seeing some beverages on the market, it's because these things will have to come in, whatever the costs. And if you have to pay a little more to ensure that the local industry also succeeds, then we have to do that. But sometimes we find the local produce being sold at a very expensive price, even than what is coming in. It's because of the production end. Because by the time you finish producing, the cost has already built up. And therefore, when you are importing, it makes it cheaper. So what you can see sometimes on the market, most of these manufacturers themselves, what they do is that they have one or two lines that they also import because they have other plants outside. So if it happens that they need this particular product, they bring it into the system and sell alongside what they have. But all in all, what I would advocate is that the atmosphere should be created for us to be able to invest in production, local production. When we are able to do that, I tell you, these imports will be reduced. Because we can't have a country where you don't import anything. Something must be imported. But that what is being imported, at what rates are we bringing them into the country? Gradually, we'll get there. Then you mentioned also this rice sector. Now, as an association member, and then looking at the statistics on our table that we look at, sometimes when we look at the import of rice for the past 4 years, what has come into country, then we say there is a challenge that we need to deal with. Now, I told you we have a sector that we deal with, that's the rice and sugar importers. As for sugar, because we don't produce, we don't talk much about that.
Sure.
But rice and the other grains that we import into the country, that is where the challenge is. Because when the ministry calls and we realize that the challenges were there, and we are importing so much rice, and the only thing that we have to do is to cut off the import of rice. We cannot do that, and therefore we have to find a solution to mitigate that effect. So we went to the ministry and we told them there is a solution, and the minister is always forthcoming once you go to him with a good proposal. So he said, what are the solutions that you have? So we realized that no, if an importer will have to bring in rice, perhaps the only thing that we have to do is for them to be able to cut off certain percentage of that rice import. So for instance, if you are bringing 10 or let's say 100,000 tons of rice, you have to take out the 20,000 and give it to the local miller, or you have to buy local rice and then also market it alongside what you are already importing. So the cost itself goes down by 20%.
Sure.
And then we give it to the local importers for them to produce, to supply, so that we can sell that by side and side. But sometimes what happens is that we are not able to meet the local production itself. So therefore, the imported one must come in to substitute the effect. Now, it's not that Ghanaians have a taste for imported rice. Now we are producing an equally jasmine rice, high quality rice, that when you put it in the market and you ask a consumer to choose, probably would not know which one is the imported and which one is the local. And then the local ones too, they are being branded very well, top-notch branding, and therefore when they put them in the market. But the only challenge that we are facing is that even as we have the local one and we want people to patronize, some people, or is it the marketer or the farmer itself, they go, mill the rice, process it in a way that has to be, go and brand it, put them on the market and sell almost the same as the imported rice. Because we want a variation where the imported rice will be more expensive than the local one. So that when you are buying the local one, though it's equally the same, it's cheaper. But at the rate at which they are producing, they know that if they don't sell at that price, they will also not break even. So you see, the issue of production itself is a challenge for all. Because by the time that you finish processing or whatever you are manufacturing or whatever, the price itself outweighs you out of the market, and therefore you also have to sell it at the price that you shouldn't sell. So with the local rice, unfortunately, at the time that we know that we are going to have so much rice in the system, and therefore we'll be able to still further cut down what is coming into the country. Unfortunately, if you look at the rainfall pattern and what the rice farmers have, the rains have come in at the time that they were supposed to harvest. The rains come in and then destroy everything. So there is a challenge, but we have to ensure that we overcome it. So whatever is coming into the country as imported rice will very soon we will not hear of it. Even if it will come, it will be at a lower rate. And looking at what is happening with the COVID as it came in, the rice import itself has become very expensive across the borders. Sometimes we may get it, sometimes we may not even get it. And if you look at what is coming into the country now, it's not that somebody is importing a larger quantity. Because whatever you are importing as an importer that we know, which are part of our membership that we know of, you have to obtain the permit. And then also we have to prove to the ministry that this person is a local rice purchaser. So you and the miller will have to then agree for what we are buying, and we know that this is what we are buying before your permit is granted. So if you don't buy local rice, you cannot import your rice. And therefore, if anybody is being given the permit to import rice without getting the necessary information that they're supposed to get, then the ministry will then have to look at it again. Because for us, we are doing our best to ensure that members who are importing conform to the laid-down regulations. Though there will be one or two mistakes over there, but then what is coming in. And so if you look at the rice imports for the past months, or from the beginning of the year till now, as compared to last year, what came last 2 years before the COVID, you could see that there's a huge drop in the rice imports. There's a huge drop in the rice imports. Unfortunately, those who are bringing in are those, you see them, maybe they call them personal effects. 1 40-footer or 20-footer container, you see a car in that container. There's about 100 bags of rice also somewhere, whether they bought at a cheaper rate, so they brought it into the country for local consumption, but then they find their way on the market. You see, that is how come you see a variety of choices in the market. So those who are not buying the local rice and they are importing through other avenues, we need to stop it for them to fall in line to ensure that the local rice succeeds. The import will be there, but then we have to also develop the local rice as it should be.
Thank you very much. We are wrapping up pretty soon, but just before we do, I want to pick your thoughts on government's initiative, Planting for Food and Jobs, Rearing for Food and Jobs, the impact on your association. Is any of your members yielding some benefits? Maybe you can share with us your thoughts about that.
Yes. I would say you left out the 1D, 1F.
One district, one county.
Most of our members have also vied into this area. They are set up factories within certain areas within this enclave, where government will give them, or if you have your own land or your, let me say, your own acquired land and you want to set up the factory and then benefit from those facilities, you will let government know, and then because you benefit from some taxes, and electricity and other things will also be extended for you, because they said you are building under 1D, 1F. You see, that is the advantage that they have. But then we shouldn't do that. Otherwise, it's been a discriminative venture. Because if I don't brand or move into the 1D, 1F, I wouldn't get those benefits. The benefits should be extended to all these the factories, even to the existing ones, for them to be able to expand into those areas. You understand? So that is a very good venture that came in. Before, there were challenges, and now all those that they started, some of them have gone a bit slower because of finances and all that. But then we expect that these factories will come up for them to also benefit society. Then planting for food. Now, planting for food shouldn't be from the farm to the market. That has been the essence, where we are planting a lot, put it in the market, and feed the people. When it goes off, when the season is not good, when we don't have irrigation, when the rain doesn't fall, what happens? There will be a challenge. And therefore, some of these challenges have been felt this year. products that are supposed to be harvested within certain times had been rained off by the rain, and those that are supposed to be harvested because of the rain pattern, they are not able to dry up for the harvest to be done. So you look at these ones and you say, is it a good venture? Yes. And then if they are getting the youth into producing more, that is a very good thing to do. We have agronomists also coming into the system. We need to employ them to give the technical advice to these people who are planting for food and jobs, so for them to be able to put their expertise on the field, because we have a lot of them unemployed. This is the time that we need to employ them to offer those expertise to them and then ensure that we benefit. But the most important thing, me as an industry player, if I'm looking at what is coming into the system, then I will ask that people should grow what can be processed for export. As a country, this is what we should be looking at, not by planting anything. If we are planting tomatoes, if we have a glut, what happens? But we should grow tomatoes that someone can easily buy and process them there, because if you plant tomatoes that has high viscosity, it becomes very difficult for them to process it. So the needed seeds ought to be given to these people. The rice sector, we are almost going out of it. In future, we know what we want, and therefore these scientists and all that, and the farmers themselves, they are working towards it. Irrigation farms are being set up for this rice sector. So that we know, with a little more work done, we should be able to overcome it by putting up more silos into the system, to be able to be sure that we are able to mop up the paddy rice and store them for some times, dry them up, and then release them as and when we have to release. If we do that, we'll be able to have enough food in the system. You see, both what is not processed and what is processed, because that is what we should be looking at. But the system where we just produce and put them in the market and it's finished, that is not what we must do.
Very well. We are just done with our conversation, but I would love if you have anything to say in terms of policy makers, in fact, to policy makers, to government, and then to members of the association, what we need to do in order to speed up production or help in yielding gains in the production sector. Your final words.
Well, I would say two things. The cost of production is too high, and the taxes are too high. So government need to do something, no matter how we engage them, because whatever goes into it, we'll discuss it. So this is the area that we have to look at to ensure that industry benefits and government also benefits. If we have to give tax holidays from time to time, so that these industries will benefit, we have to do that. And we need to do it, not that if we can, we must do it as a country to ensure that we have more people moving their finances into production. When we do that, we'll be fine. And then also with the agro-based products, we should grow plants or produce that will feed the industry. Because when you go to Pomazi or Boazi area, we have this potato factory. When they produce, about 90% of this product goes overseas. But then we want more of those factories, more of the confis to come, to join those that we have, because all these factories that we know them already. But then we need to have more of these setups to be able to break even if it comes to industrialization. You see, so that is the way we have to go as a country.
Oh, that's very insightful. Finally, 2022 is coming up. Budget 2022 is coming up. What would you love to see in the upcoming budget in next month?
Yeah, the for the budget coming, because between now, February, March, is very short a time. I would say it's left with only 1/4. We'll get there, and if there's anything to go by, the factors that I've mentioned, the tax holidays, if government will consider that, we'll make a proposal to government for them to consider those things. And also when people want to come and set up their factories and everything, there's this exhibition going down there in Dubai come November. Now, serious industries are coming into that fair. We can lure them to come into this country. By bringing them into this country, what are the things that we need to look at? The tenors that are disincentives to them, we should take it off. And then announce the tax holidays and all that. And this way, when we do that, I'm sure people will come. So as for the budget, as it comes in, we'll look at what has happened in the past and what we think our projections will be, and then we'll give the necessary proposal to government for consideration.
Thank you very much. So we'll be speaking to Mr. Samuel Aggrey, who's the Executive Secretary of Food and Beverages Association of Ghana. We have a very long conversation about the industrial sector in Ghana. The main challenges that is facing them is from taxes, electricity, interest rates, how inflation are not applicable in that particular sector. Would love that these things that we've been speaking about, government to consider some of these things and then maybe work towards it so that we can revamp production, limit importation in the country, and probably exceed our export or increase our exportation. For now, my name is Nanya Makolising. I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.